This whole ordeal has changed his life.
And I see myself personally much more committed to fighting for the political causes, whether it's the First Amendment or other causes that I believe in.
You're hearing from the new Dennis Barrie. Fresh from last week's victory, the art versus obscenity trial, Barrie says he will now travel the country arguing for First Amendment rights and for artistic freedom. Things Barrie says too few museum directors are concerned about.
It's very sad how unaware most of the people in my profession are of the political process and being involved in that political process. And I think now we realize, because of what's happened in Washington, what's happened in Cincinnati, what just happened in Broward County in Florida, that we're in a real struggle. And I'm glad I was lulled out of my complacency, which a lot of people in my generation are. I think a lot of people in my generation are.
Perhaps the single event that changed Dennis Barrie forever happened April 7th. That's the day Robert Mapplethorpe, the Perfect Moment exhibit, opened at the Art Center to the general public. The police, doing something that's never been done before, entered the museum to notify Barrie he had been indicted by a grand jury. We replayed those difficult moments for Barrie and asked him to comment on the police action.
Please leave the premises.
I have a statement in a little
Well,
while.
a lot of things went through my mind. Everything from fear to concern for what was going on to a sense of outrage. There was the outrage when they actually came in because they had violated a museum, and I had never seen that happen, at least in our nation. And having been a part of this profession for 20 years, to see something like that occur is just one of the worst things you can possibly imagine. It's akin to some other time and some other place.
When you paused at the top of those stairs with Roger off, you walked out there, you looked like you came close to being right on the edge at one time. Hands over your face, what were you doing? What were you thinking?
I think the whole scene got to me. That sense of violation was so strongly a part of my mind at the moment, and at the same time, the fact that the people were out there and they recognized the violation, and they were standing there, and they were standing there supportively. And yes, I thought I would lose it there for a moment, but somehow you get it back together.
So be patient, be calm. I know how you feel.
Was this the lowest point in the whole battle?
Yes, this was the lowest point in the whole battle.
If April 7th was the lowest point in the battle, last Friday was the highest. That's when a jury of 8 Hamilton County residents acquitted Barrie in the Art Center of obscenity charges. As he watched the replay of that special moment, tears welled up in his eyes.
We, the jury in this case, being duly impaneled and sworn, do find the defendant not guilty of pandering obscenity.
It wasn't just a victory for me or for the Contemporary Arts Center. It was truly a victory for the city. The city in one moment redeemed itself from 8 months of darkness. Most Cincinnatians recognize that they too believe in these same values, and that day the values were upheld.
Now that Cincinnati's latest obscenity fight is over, it's appropriate to ask if the battle changed the arts in Queen City.
I think as a whole, this was not good for the arts in Cincinnati because it showed some of the division. The art world did not respond in a unified way.
Barrie's talking about the lack of support he got from 2 major arts institutions in town. While nationally known museum directors made a special trip to Cincinnati last April to pledge their institution's support for Barrie and the Art Center, leaders of the Taft Museum and the Cincinnati Art Museum would only pledge their personal support, not institutional support.
To answer your question, the Cincinnati Art Museum...
I think it was difficult for us to hear that local institutions would not take a public stand at a time when we did have support from every museum in the country, practically. And I think it was a mistake on their part. I think it's going to hurt them in the long run, sadly. I don't have any animosity toward those institutions particularly. I understand fear. I understand intimidation. I understand that even some of those places may have thought we were on the side of wrong. But in the end, you must stand up for the principle. And if your institution, organization doesn't do it, eventually they'll get you. Eventually they'll hang you because they've hung us. And that, I couldn't understand why they didn't see the real issue at stake here. Their own freedom was at stake.